Have you ever felt weirded out by the way that some old people looked at you as if their eyes would tell you that they would love to rip you apart if they were only strong enough? If so, then the movie Old People might be right for you. And if you want to know more about this movie, then join me for this short review video. Sometime in the not-so-distant past, a young nurse is doing one of her usual house calls for an old man that she is taking care of. Entering his flat, she doesn't find him in his usual spot, but instead is being attacked by him and ultimately being killed. The movie then tells us that this is something that happened around the world and that in some cultures for that reason, old people are celebrated and not put aside so that they don't revolt. The movie then continues saying that this uproar soon became forgotten and things returned to normal. We are then shown a typical family of four: father, mother, older daughter and younger son, who are getting by car from their big city lives back to a rural community where the mother came from, because her sister, who is still living there, is getting married. While the main issues and problems that are coming with such a family gathering are presented to us, the old people in this community, especially those in an old people's home, are starting to act quite weird. They sit in the dark, they don't move, they don't talk, they stare at you, and they are just overall creepy. But this is just the beginning, because as the wedding day heads to its end, the old are rising up and there is hell to pay and lives to lose. I have to say I was quite skeptical going into this one, because it's a German movie and German genre movies are usually a little bit off. As a little bit of explanation, even though the classic horror movie at the start of the 20th century was taking its origins in Germany with many famous silent movies like Nosferatu, contemporary horror is not really a genre Germany is known for. German movies are mostly social studies, some comedies and mildly entertaining thrillers. This is just of course a generalization. There are some good movies coming out of Germany, but horror movies are usually flawed. And there are mainly two reasons for that, and that is either the budget, which makes the effects not really convincing, or the screenplay is just plain stupid. In some cases it might also be the acting, because the most effective and prominent examples of modern German horror movies are usually amateur productions where the acting is really bad. So I was wondering what to expect in this movie. And to get it out of the way, the movie, though not being perfect, is at least better than the usual German horror fare. But it definitely has some serious problems as well. Let's start with the usual culprit, the budget. The budget here seems to be quite nice and the technical merits are okay, you know? You have solid camera work, the effects you see are also pretty much in line with your usual horror fare, and most importantly, the atmosphere is quite well done here. So there are really creepy situations and scenes in this movie, especially due to the great cast of extras who are playing the old people, who apparently really enjoyed digging in and being as creepy as they could. When it comes to the acting of a main cast, I am not 100% sure that they are acting great, or if their performances are just coming across as a little bit stiff due to the fact that the dialogues in this movie are really badly written, at least in the German original. This might be one of those movies where the English dub might be actually better than the German original. And when I say the dialogues are bad, then I mean actually both. They are stiff and sound very unnatural, and also are partially stupid. I'm highlighting this because the acting might be actually quite good, but like I said, I really had a hard time deciding if it is just the dialogues or if also the acting is off. As the movie will be available starting October 6 on Netflix around the world, and of course they're in differently dubbed versions, I guess you can make your own picture if in the English dubbed version the acting appears to be solid. But it's not just the dialogues, the screenplay overall is a little bit weak, and it's the weak spot of the whole movie. If the screenplay would have been great, then I guess we could have had a really solid and convincing German contemporary horror entry. Unfortunately, the end result is more on the mediocre side, which compared to other German horror movies is quite good actually. If German movies are known for one thing, then it is to bring in a social component. And here of course the makers couldn't refrain from that as well. Something that seldomly fits well into a horror movie. Here it is the critique that the younger generation is just locking up old people, putting them away so they don't have to deal with them. something that was also referred to in the beginning of the movie, when they revolted the last time. Also highlighting that for this reason in some cultures, the old are really celebrated and treated more respectful. Though this moral is meant well, it really didn't fit that well into a horror movie. Especially since it makes little sense at a time like this, where we are so aware of climate change and of the fact that the old are actually leaving behind a world in which the next generation might live a horrible life that they are doomed to live in due to the sins of the old. So it might actually make more sense that the young generation is taking their revenge on the old, but that is a different story. If you want to tell a story where the old people are revolting, then don't make it so heavy on the social aspect that they really try to rub in at the end of a movie. If it is just hinted on or if it is just one motive in the back, then it also might have worked as well, but here it was just too much on the nose again. There are also some odd things in the screenplay, like somewhere in the middle of a movie, one of the adult characters is being threatened to be killed by the old people. And they just say, hey, I'm working in elderly care and I take care of you, so I should be off limit. And they actually do, though this person is a really mean person in their own right. This is in direct contrast to the beginning of the movie, where a very passionate and sympathetic nurse was killed by an old person, who before that day was taking lovingly care of the old man. So something didn't click there, but I also would say that this whole introduction scene was just plugged in front of a movie due to asks of the producers. Because it has no real relation to the main movie and basically just looks as if they wanted to have something that made the movie start with a bang. If that is true, and I believe that to be true, then they also did a very sloppy job on making the transition, because then next you see the family driving to the wedding and they just explain this worldwide uprising away as if it was forgotten. Something like that you will not forget. I assume when they wrote the original screenplay, it only happened once, and that was in the main part of the story and not once before already. There's also a recurring theme that is weird, and that is that the main family seems to have a family song and a family dance that they are connecting to that song. And they make it appear as if that is something completely normal in Germany. I have never seen it, I have never heard of it, and I am a German, so it seems quite weird. But maybe, even though this movie was filmed in German language, I guess it was mainly created for the international market, because it was produced by Netflix, so I guess they thought only the German audience would notice that. But hey, maybe there are actually families in Germany who have a family song. Maybe my family is strange, which it is, but I guess not that strange. Now before we get to the rating, let me ask you to like and share this video if you enjoyed it so far. And if you are no subscriber yet, maybe consider to change that. By also hitting the notification bell, you will get a heads up for most of my new videos. And now for the rating. Okay, well, for a German horror movie it was quite well done, though seen on a global level it was a little bit on the mediocre side. So how do I rate this one? The technical aspects, as mentioned, were great. The acting, especially from the extras that played the old people, was also excellent. The dialogues were very stiff and not really convincing, which is also true for the overall story, except for the main idea. Some parts seem to be not really fitting into the overall movie, like the beginning, and the social critique component seemed to be a little bit on the nose. Maybe they were forced to put this stuff in to receive money from the German Filmförderung, which is an institute to subsidize the production costs of a movie if there are parts in the movie that makes it more valuable regarding the critical aspects. And I have to say that the movie at least was entertaining throughout, which is something I cannot say about every German horror movie. So let's give my heart a little bit of a push and say that this one was above average, at least for a German movie, which translates into 6 out of 10 points, making it a nice one to watch, though it is not something that you would rave about. If I can say one thing about this movie, it's that it still keeps up my hope that someday there will be a great horror movie coming out of Germany if the creative team is just getting over themselves and finally manage to do it without the typical German social critic aspects shoehorned into the plot. That day I actually would celebrate. Well, what do you think about German movies in general? Have you watched a lot of them, and do you prefer to watch them in the German original with subtitles, or would you go for a dubbed version? Are you planning to watch this movie on Netflix? Or if you watched this review after the movie was released, have you already seen it and do you agree with my rating? Whatever you think, please share it in the comments to let me know. So much for now, see you next time and thanks for watching!